Oh, welcome to Just Vintage Crochet. Today we're going to do something very similar to something we've done before, but this time I'm calling it Can I Crochet That? And I'm going to seriously tackle anything that my finger lands on, no matter how complicated or simplistic it appears to be. But I want to get through a lot more patterns in this book, and there's so many wonderful ones. I have the hardest time figuring out which one I want to do. Now, to those who are new and unfamiliar with this book, this is a compilation of patterns that were put out by Weldon's out of the UK in between the 1880s and about 1900. So 20 years worth of publications, pardon the bump, that they have put out in the last 20 years of the 1800s or the 19th century. Okay, so I'm just going to flip, and whatever my finger lands on, I'm going to make. Okay, so here we go. I landed on this. Okay. Oh, would you look at that, though? Oh, my goodness. Okay, ladies' jacket. I'm happy that I landed on something ladies because almost every clothing item in this book is for children. So kind of exciting that we landed on something for the ladies here. I'm not the best at constructing like shaped clothes. I can do, like everybody else, skirts, shawls, cowls, things of that nature. I have made a couple of cardigans in my day, but they were so unbelievably basic. So I'm not always the best. And we learned this with my 1980s hoodie. I did okay with that one, but I felt very out of my depth. So I'm not the best with construction of actual garments, and that's because I do not have a seamstress's background. I do not have a sewing background, nor do I have a massive history. I have a very, very minimal history. If this is my total crochet history right here, this much of it is making shaped garments, okay? So I'm a little out of my depth, but I'm going to tackle this anyways. Ladies' jacket. This jacket is intended to wear as a winter bodice under the dress or out of doors for extra warmth under the mantle. Required 8 ounces of cardinal and 2 ounces of brown Berlin fingerling. A number 6 long bone tricot needle, that is a Tunisian crochet hook, and 8 brown bone buttons. Begin with cardinal wool with 29 chain for one of the back tabs, and do 3 rows of plain tricot. Okay. Let me get all my material. Okay, so I don't have the colors that they want in fingerling, but what I'm going to do, this will make it bigger. That's okay, I'm a bigger kind of girl. I also grabbed my 6mm Tunisian hook. The yarn calls, I'm going based on what the yarn is calling for. This yarn calls for a 5mm hook, but it's Tunisian crochet, so I bumped up just one size so that it's not too tight. Start off by saying these are not going to be beginner friendly, nor are these necessarily going to be tutorials. You are more than welcome to follow along, as I'm going to show every step of this pattern along the way. So you will be able to see the actual pattern on screen as I follow it along. But these are not necessarily tutorials, and this is more or less a challenge. Can I crochet that? So there will probably be parts where I just say I'm going to finish the rest of this off camera. Like, for example, it says to work 3 rows in essentially simple Tunisian stitch. I'm not going to do that on camera. There's no point in it. Again, this is not a tutorial. This is just for funsies that you are more than welcome to follow along. As I said before, I'm going to make this 100% available for you to follow along with as far as the pattern goes. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, here I have my 3 rows, 1, 2, 3 of the plain tricot or simple Tunisian stitch. Row 4, decrease 1 stitch at each end, but not the outside stitch. Okay, do always 1 plain stitch at each end and decrease the following by picking up 2 stitches together. Work 3 plain rows, not decreasing the outer stitch. So I will decrease this first, or I will work this first stitch plain, then I will go ahead and decrease the next stitch over by slipping under 2 bars. There we go. Okay, so coming up on the end here, and I'm going to go ahead and work these last 2 stitches together, and then the very last stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and work 3 rows in plain Tunisian or simple, well, I'm sorry, plain tricot or simple Tunisian stitch. So I will be right back whenever I have a total of 7 rows worked. So 7 rows done, and I'm basing that on completed stitches on the side here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th row. Decrease as before, work 3 plain rows. Okay. Decrease as before, then work 3 plain rows. So that's going to bring us up to row 11. We will finish row 11. Then we'll come back for row 12. So working my first stitch, then I'm going to work a decrease over the next 2 stitches, then work my way down to the end. Okay, now I'm going to work these 2 stitches together. Nope. Nope, nope, not yet. Okay, work 1 more stitch and then work these 2 stitches together. Yeah. Let's see, yeah. And then work 1 stitch on the end. Okay, so now I'm going to work 3 plain rows and I will be right back. At the end of my 11th row, so now 12th row, decrease again, work 3 more plain. Okay, so I'm going to put my sticker over the 16th and 17th rows. Okay, so I'll be right back. I'm going to decrease 1 more time and then work 3 more rows, and that's going to put me at the end of row 15. So I'll be right back. Okay, there we go. Now on to rows 16 and 17. It says increase a stitch at each end, work 1 plain row. Okay, so we're actually going to work rows 16, 17, and 18. So for 2 rows in a row, we're going to work a decrease and then 1 row plain. Okay. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera really quick. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, I will be right back. Okay, there we go. 18 rows done. So moving on now to row 19, it says increase 1 stitch at each end, break off the wool, make another back tab the same, then make 2 tabs for the fronts. Work the same as the back tabs, but for 14 rows only. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of this off camera and then I will be back. Okay, so now I'm on my second front panel. I have finished row 14. So I already did one of the front panels. Here is how they look. They're very easy to work on. So what I'm about to show you with the second panel, when you go to make the first panel, just do everything on the opposite side. So it wanted me to do increases only at the beginning of each row and no increases here. On this next panel, we're gonna avoid increases at the beginning of the row and only work all of our increases on this side. So for the 15th row, I'm gonna work in plain tricot until I get close to the end, where I will then work 1 increase. The 16th row will be the exact same. The 17th row will be no increases, just plain tricot all the way across. And then the 18th row, we will have 1 more increase at the end of the row, and then we cut. Okay, so we'll just make my way close to the end. So I'm going to work my increase right here between these 2 last front facing stitches, meaning we do have 1 more stitch on the edge. So work a stitch, yarn over, work another stitch, then work the edge. Then the return pass, just like usual. Okay, now row 16 is the same as row 15. So we just keep it straight on the start of the row and then increase at the end. So with my last 2 stitches, one of them you can't see too well, it's the increase stitch, it sort of buries itself. I'll work that increase stitch, then work an actual increase, work the second to last stitch, and then the edge stitch. There we go. Now, whenever I go to work row 17, that's going to be just plain across, no increases. So I'll be right back when I get to the end of row 18, which row 18 is the last increase row before the end of this whole tab here. So now I have rows 15 and 16 were increased, row 17 was not increased, and then row 18 was increased, and that's my increase stitch right there. So now we are done with all of that. Let's see what we need to do next. Okay, so row 19, which is the first row of the body. Plain tricot taking up the stitches of all 4 tabs. Second row increase, okay, we'll worry about second row later. Let's go ahead and work all these pieces. Okay, so all 4 pieces have been done. Now, whenever I do this with Tunisian, I don't get them wet first. I mean, if I use cotton, yes, but this is acrylic. It's plastic fibers. They're not going to absorb anything. So I just, while they're dry, pin them into shape, blow dry them. I hold the blow dryer really close to the fabric, especially the bottom half where it curls the most. Up here, we're going to continue to work, so this doesn't need to be as flat. This, I want it as flat as possible. It's really hot. The pins are hot. So I'm going to go ahead and give this all the time it needs to let all 4 pieces completely cool down. It could take up to 30 minutes, maybe even a little longer, but I want them to be not even a little bit, tiny bit warm, completely cooled down. The only way to get acrylic or plastic to retain its shape is to let it harden back up and cool in the shape you have it in. So that's what I'm going to do. So I will see you in just a moment. I'm going to go have some lunch. Okay, these are nice and cold, or cooled down. Colder than my touch, so cold. Okay. Look at that. All right, let me get the rest. So the placement of these, what they're calling tabs, I am switching to a Tunisian hook that has a cable because I'm going to need the length now. So I already played around with this, and they keep calling these curves right here where we did all these increases the armpit area. So since this has to wrap around to the, this is the back panels, what I'm going to do, again, because in the pattern, I guess you'll see this as I go, but in the pattern, it says that we need to work an increase on both ends and then 2 increases at the armpit area, which tells me the armpit area needs to be aimed in. They can't be aimed out because that can't be the armpit area and the end at the same time per instructions. So my guess is that, do I have this upside down? Yes, I did. I had that upside down. Okay, so my guess is the armpit area is going to go like this. And I also have another theory. I wonder if this, no, these are the bottoms, I think. I don't know if this is the bottom or the top of, I don't know if we're working top down or bottom up. I don't know yet. But after playing with this, and I played with it a lot, there's a whole pile, about 3.5 hours worth of work I had to undo. So I'm going to start this over again. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to pile these up in the order that they're going to be attached. So this one will go on last, second to last, second, and first. So what I did earlier was on the end stitch here, right there, just going to connect the yarn here, and that's my first stitch right there. And I'll just start picking up stitches. This first stitch will be loose and floppy until we get a few more rows worked in. But okay, I'll be right back. Okay, ready to join our first piece. So I'm just going to go into this end stitch like usual. Grab the next piece that I need to join, and just like before, right into that edge stitch. That's where I'm going to join these two, and I'm going to keep it kind of firm like that so that they don't stretch too far apart from each other. So I'm going to do this all the way across, and then I will work all of my return stitches and come back and show you what we're going to do next. But there you go, working it kind of firm keeps it from stretching too much right there. Okay, I'll be back whenever I'm done with my return stitches. Okay, so we are joined now. So here's the deal with row 19. It's kind of funny. Row 19 wears two hats. So we just worked row 19 by joining all these panels together, and then we skip to row 2. So it says right here that the 19th row, which is the first row of the body, so row 19 wears two hats. It plays row 19 and row 1 at the same time. So now we're going to jump to row 2. We're going to work one increase at the beginning, one increase at the end, and two increases under each armpit area with one plain stitch worked between each increase at the armpit area. Then we work 3 rows plain. So meaning we're going to work one increase here, and then at the armpit area, which is going to be right here, I'm going to work one increase, one plain stitch, one increase, and then my end stitch. And I learned whenever I played around with this before to mark my edge stitches where the armpit area is, because they will get lost. So here is my joining edge stitch, meaning here's the edge, here's where I joined, right here. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I will come back whenever I get to this first armpit area, and I'll show you how to do this one time because it'll be the same for all the others. Now coming to the end of this first panel, which is also an armpit panel, I'm going to work, I have 3 stitches left to work, this being my edge stitch right here. So I'll work one stitch, work an increase, then work the second to last stitch, and then the last stitch. And I'll do the same thing over here with this, I'm just calling it the armpit panel. Then I'm going to work 3 plain rows after this, which will take us up to row 6. Okay, ready for row 6. But now that we know how to do the increases, I'm going to give myself a lot of homework. So here we go. Row 6, we're going to work, it's basically the same thing, just a little bit different. Increase one stitch at the beginning, 2 stitches under each arm, working, here we go, working one plain stitch between the 2 increased, and then 1 stitch at the end, work 3 plain rows. 10th row, 1 increase at the beginning, 2 stitches under each arm, working 3 plain stitches between the 2 increased. 1 increase at the end, work 3 plain rows. So I'm going to work all of this until row 14. And here's where the stitch markers are going to come in handy. Just move it on up to here. So now whenever I want to work my increase, where it says to work 2 stitches, I'll work like 1 stitch with an increase, 1, 2, increase, and then work the last 2 stitches. And I'll do that on both sides. And then whenever I get up to row 10, I'll do that again just by coming back 1 extra stitch and working 3 plain in between the increases. So I am going to work all of that off camera. Here is how things are turning out. Let me pan the camera out for you so you can see where we're at so far. Okay, there we go. Since I have it panned out, it's going to be a little darker on the edges, but that's how things are working out so far. So I will be back whenever I am ready to start on row 14. All right, so what I did, I actually worked on a little bit because I saw that row 14 was the same as all the other rows. It's just we worked 5 plain stitches between the 2 increases under the armpit area. And we also worked 4 plain rounds instead of 3. And I'll show you that here. So for row 14, increase 1 stitch at the beginning, 2 stitches under each arm, working 5 plain stitches between the 2 increased. And then it says, and 1 stitch at the end, all an increased stitch. There you go. And then it says work 4 plain rows. So now I am here at row 19, and I read it a little bit. I went ahead and switched back to my straight hook because honestly, the wire, while extremely useful, can be a little bit annoying. So I was super happy to switch back to my fixed hook. So now it says, I guess I need to bring this back up. So for row 19, it says here we divide for the armholes. Increase 1 stitch at the beginning and pick up 34 stitches beyond and work 1 back. And work back. Then we move on to the 20th row. So here we go. Increasing 1 at the beginning. So I'm going to work my first stitch. Yarn over, that's my increase. Now beyond this, I need to pick up, where does it say? 34 stitches. So I'm going to do that really quick. I'll be right back. So after working the 34 stitches beyond, my last stitch, my 34th stitch, wound up being right exactly where my stitch marker is. Okay, hopefully it works out the same on the other side when we move on to that part. But here we go. I'm now working my return pass. And just to be a little bit ahead of the game here, row 20, it says here that we're going to omit 2 stitches at the end. So just work regular 2 stitches at the end. 21, omit 2 stitches at the end. 22, omit 1 stitch at the end. Do 2 more rows, same as the last. Then work 7 plain rows. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do all that. So I'm going to remove a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches. Then I'm going to work 7 rows plain. Okay, so that's my homework. I will be back whenever I have all of that done. Okay, so I'm now ready to work row 32. Here is how that turned out looking. There is 2 rows of decreasing 2, and then there's a total of 7 rows of decreases, and then a total of 7, no, forgive me, it's a total of 7 decreases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 7 rows just plain across. So now let's look at what we're going to do next. Okay, so row 32. Okay, so 32nd row, decrease 1 stitch at the beginning, but just work the rest normal. Then the 33rd row plain, 34th row, decrease 1 stitch at the beginning and increase 1 stitch at the end to shape the shoulder. 35th row, plain. Then repeat the last 2 rows twice. So I'm going to do all of that off camera. I just wanted to go over the instructions with you, and then I'll show you the result. So let's start with row 32, which is decrease 1 stitch at the beginning. So let's see, how do I want to go about doing that? Just jump right in like that. Yeah, that works. Okay. So that's my decrease. And I'm going to go from there, and I will see you whenever I am at the end of row 37. Yeah, because row 35 is plain, and then repeat the, repeat the last 2 rows twice. So 39. I'll see you at the end of row 39. Okay. So here we are at the end of row 39. Now I'm going to give myself a huge chunk of homework, but of course you can always pause the screen, take screenshots of the pattern, because now we pretty much get how to do an increase and a decrease. That's really all that matters. So here is my next huge chunk of homework, and I'm going to get another sticker here so that I can mark off for the back first row. So I'm going to stop right here before I jump back on camera again. Okay, so for row 40, I'm going to hold this in a certain type of way. Okay, so for row 40, decrease 1 stitch at the beginning and increase 1 stitch at the end. For the 41st row, decrease 1 stitch just at the beginning. 42nd row, we're going to repeat the 40th row. We're going to decrease 1 stitch at the beginning and increase 1 stitch at the end. 43rd row, decrease 1 stitch at the beginning. 44th row, the same. So repeat row 43. 45th row, plain. 46th row, omit 4 stitches at the end. So start off normal with no increase or decrease, but then just stop when there's 4 stitches left and work your return pass. 47th row, decrease 1 stitch at the beginning, omit 4 stitches at the end. Now, leave this piece of work and basically jump. Okay. Now, leave this piece of work and in complete word, wool from another ball, proceed the opposite side of the front. So they want us to leave it attached and then add from a second ball of yarn to the other side and work the other side just as we've been working this side. So, you know, you want to count 34 stitches, and then on the end, make sure you have room for your 1 stitch plain, your increase, 1 stitch plain, and then like your edge stitch. Okay, proceed with the opposite side of the front to correspond. And then we're going to start working the back pieces, which are right here in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work all of this off camera, and I will show you how that is looking. So here is how the first half turned out. Now I'm starting on the other half, so I had to go all the way back to row 19, join my yarn. I just followed my stitch marker up, and of course I worked 34 stitches over. It all worked out perfect. I had enough room to do a 1 increase, 1 plain stitch, and then my edge stitch. Everything worked out perfectly as far as the math goes. Now here, you have to read everything in an opposite format. So it might say omit 2 stitches at the end, but we have to omit 2 stitches at the beginning because we're working like, we have to do the opposite of how this one looks. So just a quick tip for you if you are following along. Whenever it says if you want it to look just like this side here, and this side sort of has like steps like that, you're just going to have to slip stitch over, which is essentially binding off 2 stitches. So the stitch on the hook is our first stitch. That's our edge stitch. So we're going to bind off that stitch by going into the next stitch over and working a slip stitch. Now we are in this stitch. We have to bind off this stitch, the second stitch over, by going into the third stitch over and working a slip stitch. Now that is our 2 skipped stitches. So now we are in the third stitch, and you just go from there and follow the instructions all the way through to the end, like this side. Okay, I'll be back whenever I have this whole side done and I'm ready to start on the back. I finished both front panels and I was really confused by the language in the back, for the back, so I decided to just not wing it, but just go for what my instinct told me to go for. I wanted to start it to make sure I had it right, which I still don't know if I do, but it says leave 2, this is the first back row, leave 2 stitches from the right side front, pick up all the stitches to within 2 of the left front. This I found thoroughly confusing because we have a left and right front, but those are already done. There's no reason to join them. We have the whole back of the piece completely hollow. So why would we join them? That made no sense to me. Like structurally, it made no sense. And draw back, which means work your return pass. Second row, decrease 2 stitches on each side. Work 4 rows, decreasing 1 stitch on each side. Work 2 plain rows. Next row, again, decreasing on each side. Work 10 plain rows. Work 8 rows, decreasing 1 stitch on each side. Break off wool. Resume on right side front. Work along the join at the shoulder, work along the back join. So reading all that, I think I have it right. And I'm going to hold this part up here so that you can take a screenshot. This is the section all the way to the sleeves, right there. Just like that, if you want to screenshot that. Okay, I'm gonna get to work. I started off, I joined to within 2 stitches of the edge, I guess. I'm a little insecure about this part, if you couldn't tell by the way I sound. But here's my stitch marker. Here is where I started the front panel. So within 2 stitches on this side, I ignored the 2 stitches on this side. Then I came over here and slip stitched over 2 stitches. Then I omitted 2 stitches on this side, which is the last post stitch, and then the edge stitch. And I'm getting ready to work my return pass on this. This is just row 2. So now I'm going to continue to work all those other rows, working all of the decreases when decreases. Of course, I held that portion up for you, so you can always go back, pause that screen, whatever you need to do. But here we go. I will be back whenever I am all done with that portion. Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused now that we're getting into the construction part. See, I'm just not good. The more I work on patterns like this, the better I will get. Anybody would. So I'm just going to have a little patience with myself and remind myself that this is not the type of crochet I'm super familiar with. So if I don't get it right, that's okay. Okay, so I pinned it up because I am struggling with that part of the pattern still. It wasn't making sense as I was working it, so I needed to see how things were looking, how things were shaping up. This is what I have so far. And the back, I mean, this is the part on the instructions that's really, really throwing me off. But it is looking good. It's too big for my dress form. I'll show you by how much. There we go. You can see it's just a bit too big for my dress form because I still have to put a big border on it. I'm still going to add the big border. But I needed to see it so that I can see how the back needs to be constructed. Perhaps even going outside of the instructions just to make it make sense for me. So I need this part to curve for the armhole, just like this part right here curved. So I'm just gonna start playing with it, working it out, and then I will come back and let you know what I came up with. I ran into whenever I started working it the way I was explaining, this part right here got really narrow really fast by following the instructions given. Now, it says to work the start on the front panel. If I were to start on the front panel right here, this will turn into 1 stitch before we even hit 10 rows. And these instructions leave 2 stitches from the right side front and pick up all the stitches to within 2 of the left front. I really don't know what that means. Let me get you back down here. Okay, to within 2 of the left front and draw back. Second row, decrease 2 stitches on each side. Here's where things start to narrow up really fast. Next row, again, decrease 1 stitch. Nope, I skipped. Okay, decrease 2 stitches on each side. Work 4 rows, decreasing 1 stitch on each side. Work 2 plain rows. Next row, again, decrease 1 on each side. Work 10 plain rows. Then work 8 rows, decreasing 1 on each side. I mean, I didn't even get halfway through those instructions before this section here had shrunk down to about that thick, to about as thick as this, a little bit narrower actually by a couple of stitches. So I'm really not sure what to do here. So I started thinking, well, do they mean start here and go down? Well, no, because then that eats up, that will eat up the armhole. That won't work. I don't really, I can't picture what they're describing. And if I can't picture it, I just don't know what to do. You know, I'm sure you all have been in that position before with a pattern, which is why it's nice to be able to reach out to these people who sell patterns or to have a video tutorial. But this is from the late 1800s. I don't have anybody to reach out to. So the next question is, thinking outside of the pattern box here, do I start here, go up, and then slowly start to make the curves and then come back out this way again and make sure that I have enough stitches that whenever this comes around the front, here is this part right here, you can see where we have a whole bunch of decreases right here. Then we have this straight part here. The straight part is this part right here. So I need, here, I'll flip both of these over so you can see how this is meant to be laid out this way. See? Here is the tops of the shoulders right here. Let me pan back out again. So I need to make this go up, come in a little bit to make room for armholes, then come back out to match, come back out a little bit to be able to match stitch for stitch on both sides. But now that being said, let me count real quick. So I have to figure out, I've got little Merlin hairs on everything. I have got to be able to figure out how to make this work. I just do. So I'll be back. Okay, so I'm starting off with 38 stitches without skipping anything. Here is my edge stitch that started going this way. So I'm just gonna, and I could just take the same stitch, really. That way it's seamless. That would give me 40 stitches. That would give me 40 stitches to work with. But then it would be too big. So if I did start off skipping 2, I can sew these 2 halves together. No. Okay. I'm going to start, if I were to start here, Picking up all these stitches here. Okay. What if I start right here in this same join that this stitch right here is in, and that's loose. Well, it's just going to be loose. That's fine. And then start picking up stitches all along the way. I think what I'm going to do is copy the instructions here, but everything reversed like this. And I think that will work. And whatever I do, I have to make sure I have enough stitches. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a try. And so I'm basically starting like this is row 19 from the front panel. And I'm just going to go. So I'm going to work this first row. And then the next row I will omit 2 on each end. And then the next row omit 2 on each end and just go from there. We will see how well it works out. That's all I can do, really. Thing I'm going to have to omit is any increases. Since we're not working an edge, I am working the armholes from the back. So anytime it says to increase at the beginning, decrease at the end, I'm going to have to omit the increase part and just work those decreases until I get toward the top. And based on stitch count, I will know if I need to start working increases just to get it to match the shoulder portion. So it'll need to work out like that. And I think it will. Well, no. There we go. It'll need to match this. I think I'll have it. I think I'll have it. Okay. No, I might even be able to follow the actual written instructions as written based on simply ignoring the fact that I didn't start with 2 stitches in on both sides, which gave me more stitches to work with. It easily gave me 3 more stitches. So a total of 6 more stitches. I just don't know. I'm just going to keep going and let you know what I did when I'm done. Okay. Here's my game plan. So my first row started off at 27 stitches across. That's row 1 of my increase rows, of course. I add 2, that brings me up to 33. I add 5 in the 4th row. That's going to even out my numbers. So now I'm going to be working in 2s. So I'll just do 2 on each side increases and then 1 increase randomly in the middle. The 6th row, plain. The 7th row, add 2, brings me up to 42. 8th row, add 2, that brings me up to 44. Add another 2, 46. And then the 10th row is plain. The pattern 1. I can't put any more energy. I have worked the back, unworked it, reworked it. I can't get the armholes right. Here's the back. It's just not right. The armholes are coming out the back. I don't have it right. I have just put a lot of energy into this. I've been working on this for 3 days. And honestly, I am starting to lose interest in it only because I feel defeated. Please tell me I'm not the only one who has felt that way before. But yeah, I'm feeling a bit defeated by it, but I feel like I got pretty far. I feel like it looks good. If I could only figure out how to do the back. If anybody has any suggestions for those who are still wanting to make something like this, maybe you guys have something way more clever. I told you guys, I am not good with constructed pieces, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to keep learning. Okay, I'm going to keep this piece. It's still attached to my dress form. My dress form mostly just holds my purses nowadays and like scarves and my tree skirt. We're going to put our tree skirt up after Thanksgiving, but I'm going to keep this attached to the dress form. I'm going to keep working patterns out of this book. I do believe I'm going to continue to improve in skills of like formed, shaped clothing. And then I'm going to revisit this and I'm going to complete it. I'm going to do it right. So what do you think, Merlin? Is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? I think so. I can't tell you how bad I wish this had a front and back image, but it doesn't. So let me give you the rest of the pattern. So if you are able to follow the pattern a lot better than I did, here is where the arms start. Okay, no, wait, that's the back. Okay, so now for the sleeves. Here are the instructions for the sleeves. And then to right here. Okay, that's the instructions for the sleeves. And now for the border, which it looks like it's a series of fan stitches separated by single crochets. So here is the whole border. Okay, well, this was a lot of fun, and I'm not going to lie, I want to dive immediately into another one. This is so exciting. This is making me feel as excited as I was whenever we first started doing mystery patterns. But there is a lot of stress in doing the mystery patterns. I am by no means stopping mystery patterns, but I think I'm going to take a little bit of a pause and just try to play around with something else a little less stressful. This did take me 3 days to do, but it was 3 fun days of being able to use creativity and honestly, having an image, references, having context really does. These patterns are difficult to work, whether you have the picture, the title, and the context or not. So this was a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed this, being able to look at the photo and make it right. And also, every pattern in this book I'm excited about. Justin picks out my mystery patterns, and he does his best. But I am excited to work every single pattern in this book. There isn't one I'm not excited about. So I feel like it's a win-win for me, because it's also not that much of a guessing game, because I already know I love every pattern in here. Okay, guys, let me know what you think. I'm going to start filming another one right away. I will see you in the next Can I Crochet That?